In this video help, I'll be covering the inventory input. The inventory is a screen where you add individual records for inventory items. In this particular case, what we're looking at here is the description of the item that's going to go into the inventory. When you add a new record, it will take and replace the screen you're viewing with a new screen looking just like this with a new product ID at the top. I only have a couple sample records in here, so there's not a lot of information in here. So what you're going to do in this case, and I'm going to go through it, it will automatically put the product ID in. The next thing it will do is you'll need to type in the description of the item that's going to be in inventory. Now in this case, it's a bag of cement. Now what you may want to do is you may want to, if you have different sizes of bags, like a 5 pound, 10, 20, 50, 100, you may want to do an individual record for each one of them so you can separate them in your inventory. If there's a part number from the vendor or from, say, like Home Depot or Lowe's, and they have a part number where you want to order it, in some cases both those companies will actually pull stock from you and put it on a pallet so you can swing by, pick it up, and just pay for it. So what you might want to do is have the information for the part number for that item. In this case, the primary vendor is Home Depot. Now you could put a comma in there and put Lowe's or whatever, but when you do these individual records, it's a good idea to put that product information over in the product notes. There's a lot of information you need to understand about the inventory in respect to pricing and availability. For example, when you're purchasing down here on the inventory portal side, by the way, you do not add anything in this orange field. You would add it down here. But as you're doing an ad, for example, and you want to put something in, you would use the drop down to pick the items that are in the inventory. So what's available in the inventory would be shown. Now if you start typing in the first few characters of the description of the item, like 2 by 4, it should reduce the list to show you only those items that match that, and the rest of the stuff would disappear. Now in this particular case, when you're purchasing something, it should be for the item that you're actually working with. So what you're doing is you're purchasing and using a purchase history situation in the screen for the product that you're buying. So what you would do is you drop this down and pick the Portland cement by the part number, which also identifies the exact item you're looking for. The next thing you would do is add the date of which you're going to purchase the item, and then where you're purchasing it at, Lowe's, Home Depot, or wherever. Then the quantity that you're going to be actually ordering. Then the price at which you purchased it at. Now, if you put the quantity and the price in, it will automatically calculate the cost for you. Now, in a case of a contractor, which you would be with a licensed tax license doing serviceman work, you should not be paying sales tax. You should always be picking your materials up from the contractor's work desk, like at Home Depot or whatever, and you should have a record of your tax number at the location to which you're buying items. So for the novices or somebody who's just starting up a business, you want to make sure that you have a tax license, or in outside the US, you would have to do the applicable things for your area. Now, this particular field right here is quite interesting. And it kind of works hand in hand with the fields up here. You can see where we've actually purchased or have 10 items on balance, but we've never ordered anything out of this. So let's go back a little bit and look at one where there was one ordered, and you'll see that if you fill out in the materials form on the schedule, what it'll do is it'll show you the material ID in the schedule for the record to which we purchased it from. It'll automatically take the same corresponding information up here and put it in there for the product that you purchase. Now, understand, you do not have to add this. As soon as you do it in the materials screen on the schedule, it will automatically go to the appropriate inventory record and update the quantity that you actually are using in the job. And in this case, it also tells you where it was used, because the used on, which I discussed earlier in the schedule, shows up in here so you can see what kind of work was done and where it was done and where it was used and the quantity that was used. Now, it also has the installation date so you can track your work pace as far as where things are actually used based on the materials that you actually were working with. Plus, the install date usually corresponds to the actual date of the project task, so you'll know when this task was supposed to be done. Now, there is a portal record in here also where if you make a mistake, do not delete it in this area here. This is not somewhere where you would delete it, so you would delete it back on the material portal. So make sure you don't try to delete it in here. This would take you to the material portal, but you would do it on the actual schedule that you're working on, because you need to take it out on that portal so that it properly changes all the things back in the schedule as opposed to here. Okay, now the actual sum of the purchases is calculated based on how many you bought, the total quantity of items that you've ever purchased for this particular item, and the sum of the items used. In this case, it showed that we used all 10 that were in inventory, and our current balance is 0. So when you look at the inventory listing, you're going to see what items are actually out there that still have a balance on them. So if I'm looking at the inventory listing, I see my item here, and I can see if I'm going to buy things or I need things before I do my bid. I can look to see if I actually have items that are now in inventory. And if I don't have them, I'm looking at the approximate average cost and what the standard price for selling them is. So this is good information to have so you understand how and when to bid items. Now, obviously, when you're doing a bid for an item, you can look at the past history of where you purchased it to see where the highs and lows are as far as where the purchases were made. Maybe Home Depot's cheaper than Lowe's, for example, but you didn't have a choice one time and you purchased it at Lowe's, so your cost was a little higher. Now, obviously, when you put in the information for this and you're putting in your standard price, which is this is your own entry, you could use the average price, but you don't want to do that. That's your cost. You want to actually estimate what you want to sell this for. In this particular case, we're actually saying that there's a margin on this of $5. So our original cost was $6, our margin is $5, and we're selling it for $11. That's very important to recognize those differences, because when you're bidding, you can look at your margin cost. Now, when you're going to use this in the materials part of the schedule, you can take a look at this, and this is just the suggested standard price. If you want to raise it a little bit because you're a little soft on your estimate, on your quote, you can, and it can go the other way too. If you're going to bid for something and you think you need to be a little bit lower, you don't have to go with a standard price, but you do not want to sell it below your average price or even close to it, because then you won't profit very much from your work. So you want to make sure that you can check this, and if you have a question, you can always bounce right over here from the materials portal and take a look at your average cost, standard cost, and what you would want to get as a margin. Okay, the product picture is another area here. Let me go back and find one, or another one. The product picture is actually added in a couple of different ways. You can do it from the iPad camera. You can take your own camera and take pictures of things. You can copy them from the internet, from a product catalog like in Lowe's or someplace like Home Depot, and paste it in here. And the way you do that is you either tap or click on it depending on where you're at. If it's on the desktop or on the iPad, it's going to say insert from library. In this case, I'm on the desktop and I'm going to insert it from the hard drive. Or if I copy it from a website, all I have to do is say paste it, and it will paste it in here. So it'll paste it in from that screen. You can even use the Google pictures, where it shows all the pictures out there for a given subject. So if you wanted to say, like, have a bench, and you wanted to use that for a landscaping item where you're going to show somebody a bench, and it's from, say, someplace as an example rather than for say a Lowe's or something where you might want to order it, you could put it in there into inventory. But I suggest you use things that are known cost items from stores that you know you can go buy it from or order it from. You can also go to the internet and order direct from those buyers, for example, like Home Depot and Lowe's. And in some cases, obviously, that's going to incur shipping. But if it's not in stock, so be it. You might have to put the stock for inventory and a note for the shipping cost. So it's important to recognize the full cost. Now, when you're doing shipping and it's included in the particular cost, you want to include that in your purchase cost. Shipping is an item that you need to pass along to the client. So you would, instead of it being $6.50 and I bought the item and it was $3 of shipping, I would make it $9.50. So be aware of that. And that depends on each time that you buy it. So if you bought it one time and you bought it at the store, but it's out of stock and you had to pay shipping, put in the actual price and then maybe a note up in the notes up here in product notes that you had to have it include shipping on that particular time. So these are all things that help you to keep yourself profitable within your inventory system. Now recall, I'm just going to recap, make sure that you do make an individual unique record. Do not ever repeat the same information in a record. That will cause problems with you looking it up on drop-down lists. It will not function properly. So you do have to have a unique product description, because when things are looked up by a product description, if they're not properly documented, it just will not show up at all in here. So do not add any duplicates of an exact same thing. So you need to do more of a description up here, like 5-pound bag, 10-pound bag, 20-pound bag. Okay, if you have any other questions or suggestions, you can get in contact with me through the support website. Thank you.